Om Shri Krishnaya Paramatmane Namaga. Shri Gurubhyo Namaga. Pathanjali Yoga Sutram. Sadhana Paadham. The Sadhana Pada comprises of 55 sutras. Sadhana is the Sanskrit for practice or discipline, aiming at discriminative discernment to discern the seer consciousness from its objects and the hindrances. Here the author outlines two systems of yoga, namely Kriya Yoga and Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga means eight-limbed yoga. Kriya Yoga in the Yoga Sutras is a preparation for Ashtanga Yoga. It consists of tapas, austerity, swadhyaya, self-study of scriptures, and Ishvara pranidhana, devotion to God or pure consciousness. Next is Ashtanga Yoga, which is yoga of 8 limbs. In Sadhana Pada, 5 indirect aids for purification and aiding insight are outlined, and the remaining 3 are outlined in the Vibhuti Pada. The 8 limbs of Ashtanga Yoga are Yama, that is restraints or ethics of behaviors. Yama consists of Ahimsa, non-violence, Satya, truthfulness, Asteya, non-stealing, Brahmacharya, chastity, Aparigraha, non-possession. 2. Niyama, observances. Niyama consists of the following observances: Saucha, cleanliness; Santosha, contentment; Tapas, austerity; Swadhyaya, self-study; Ishvara pranidhana, devotion to the Lord. 3. Asana, a physical posture in which one can be steady and comfortable. 4. Pranayama, control of prana or the life force, generally talked as breath. 5. Pratyahara, withdrawal of senses. 6. Dharana, concentration. 7. Dhyana, meditation. 8. Samadhi, absorption. Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi are dealt with in the next pada, namely Vibhuti Pada. Now we will get into Sadhana Pada. In this episode we will see Sadhana Pada Sutras 1 to 10. Sadhana Pada, the path to realization. Sutram 1. Tapa swadhyayeshvara pranidhanani kriya yogaha. Mortification, study and surrendering fruits of work to God are called Kriya Yoga. Those samadhis with which we ended our last chapter are very difficult to attain, so we must take them up slowly. The first step, the preliminary step, is called Kriya Yoga. Literally, this means working towards yoga. The organs are the horses, the mind is the reins, the intellect is the charioteer, the soul is the rider, and this body is the chariot. The master of the household, the king, the self of man, is sitting in this chariot. If the horses are very strong and do not obey the reins, If the charioteer, the intellect, does not know how to control the horses, then this chariot will come to grief. But if the organs, the horses, are well controlled, and if the reins, the mind, are well held in the hands of the charioteer, the intellect, the chariot reaches the goal. What is meant therefore by mortification? Holding the reins firmly while guiding this body and the mind, not letting the body to do anything it likes, but keeping them both in proper control. Study. What is meant by study in this case? Not study of novels or fiction or storybooks, but study of those books which teach the liberation of the soul. Then again, this study does not mean controversial studies at all. The yogi is supposed to have finished his period of controversy. He has had enough of all that and has become satisfied. He only studies to intensify his convictions. Vada and Siddhanta. These are the two sorts of scriptural knowledge. Vada, the argumentative, and Siddhanta, the decisive. When a man is entirely ignorant, he takes up the first part of this, the argumentative fighting and reasoning, pro and con. And when he has finished that, he takes up the Siddhanta, the decisive, arriving at a conclusion. Simply arriving at this conclusion will not do. It must be intensified. Books are infinite in number and time is short. Therefore, this is the secret of knowledge, to take that which is essential. Take that out and then try to live up to it. This is an old simile in India that if you place a cup of milk before a Rajahamsa, namely swan, with plenty of water in it, it will take all the milk and leave the water. In that way, we should take what is of value in knowledge and leave the dross. All these intellectual gymnastics are necessary at first. We must not go blindly into anything. The yogi has passed the argumentative stage and has come to a conclusion which is like the rocks, immovable. The only thing he now seeks to do is to intensify that conclusion. Do not argue, he say. If one forces arguments upon you, be silent. Do not answer any argument, but go away free, because arguments only disturb the mind. The only thing is to train the intellect. So, what is the use of disturbing it anymore? The intellect is but a weak instrument and can give only knowledge limited by the senses. The yogi wants to go beyond the senses. Therefore, the intellect is of no use to him. He is certain of this and therefore is silent and does not argue. Every argument throws his mind out of balance, creates a disturbance in the chitta, and this disturbance is a drawback. These argumentations and searchings of the reason are only on the way. There are much higher things behind them. The whole of life is not for schoolboy fights and debating societies. By surrendering the fruits of work to God is to take to ourselves neither credit nor blame, but to give both up to the Lord and be at peace. Sutram 2. Samadhi Bhavana Artha Klesha Tanu Karana Arthascha. They are for the practice of samadhi and minimizing the pain-bearing obstructions. Most of us make our minds like spoiled children, allowing them to do whatever they want. Therefore, it is necessary that there should be constant practice of the previous mortifications in order to gain control of the mind and bring it into subjection. The obstructions to yoga arise from lack of this control and causes pain. They can only be removed by denying the mind and holding it in check through these various means. Sutra 3. Avidya, Asmita, Raga, Dvesha, Abhiniveshaha, kleshaha. The pain-bearing obstructions are ignorance, egoism, attachment, aversion, and clinging to life. These are the 5 pains, the fivefold tie that binds us down. Of course, ignorance is the mother of all the rest. She is the only cause of all our misery. What else can make us miserable? The nature of the soul is eternal bliss. What can make it sorrowful except ignorance, hallucination, delusion? All this pain of the soul is simply delusion. Sutra 4. Avidya kshetram uktaresam prasupta tanu vischinna udharanam. Ignorance is the productive field of all them that follow, whether they are dormant, attenuated, overpowered, or expanded. Impressions are the cause of these, and these impressions exist in different degrees. There are the dormant. You often hear the expression innocent as a baby. Yet in the baby may be the state of a demon or of a god, which will come out by and by. In the yogi, these impressions, the samskaras left by past actions, are attenuated. That is, in a very fine state, and he can control them and not allow them to become manifest. Overpowered means that sometimes one set of impressions is held down for a while by those that are stronger, but they will come out when the repressing cause is removed. The lost state is the expanded. When the samskaras, having helpful surroundings, have attained to great activity, either as good or evil. Sutram 5. Anitya, Asushi, Dukkha, Anatmasu, Nitya, Suchi, Sukha, Atma, Kyathi, Avidya. Ignorance is taking that which is non-eternal, impure, painful, and non-self for the eternal, the pure, happy, Atman, that is self. All these various sorts of impression have one source, ignorance. We have first to learn what ignorance is. All of us think that I am the body and not the self, the pure, the effulgent, the ever blissful, and that is ignorance. We think of man and see man as body. That is the great delusion. Sutra 6. Drig darshana saktyor ekatmate vasmitha. Egoism is the identification of the seer with the instrument of seeing. The seer is really the self, the pure one and the ever holy, the infinite, the immortal. That is the self of man. And what are the instruments? The chitta or mind stuff, the buddhi, determinative faculty, the manas or mind, and the indriyani or sense organs. These are the instruments for him to see the external world. And the identification of the self with the instruments is what is called the ignorance of egoism. We say, I am the mind, I am thought, I am angry, or I am happy. How can we be angry and how can we hate? We should identify ourselves with the self that cannot change. If it is unchangeable, how can it be one moment happy and the other unhappy? It is formless, infinite, omnipresent, What can change it beyond all law? What can affect it? Nothing in the universe can produce an effect on it. Yet, through ignorance, we identify ourselves with the mind stuff and think we feel pleasure or pain. Sutra 7. Sukhanu Sayi Ragaha. Attachment is that which dwells on pleasure. We find pleasure in certain things, and the mind, like a current, flows towards them. And that, following the pleasure center, as it were, is attachment. We are never attached to anyone in whom we do not find pleasure. We find pleasure in very queer things sometimes, but the definition is just the same. Wherever we find pleasure, there we are attached. Sutram 8. Dukkhanu Sayi Dveshaha. Aversion is that which dwells on pain. That which gives us pain, we immediately seek to get away from. Sutram 9. Swarasa Vahi Vidushopi Tatharudho Biniveshaha. Flowing through its own nature and established even in the learned is the clinging to life. This clinging to life you see manifested in every animal, and upon it many attempts have been made to build the theory of a future life. Because men like their life so much that they desire a future life also. Of course, it goes without saying that this argument is without much value. But the most curious part of it is that in Western countries, the idea that this clinging to life indicates a possibility of a future life applies only to men, but does not include animals. In India, this clinging to life has been one of the arguments to prove past experience and existence. For instance, if it be true that all our knowledge has come from experience, then it is sure that which we never experienced, we cannot imagine or understand. As soon as chickens are hatched, they begin to pick up the food. Many times it has been seen where ducks have been hatched by hens that as soon as they come out of the eggs, they flew to water and the mother thought they would be drowned. If experience be the only source of knowledge, where did these chickens learn to pick up the food, or the ducklings that the water was their natural element? If we say it is instinct, it means nothing. It is simply giving it a word, but is no explanation. What is this instinct? We have many instincts in ourselves. For instance, most of you ladies play the piano and remember when you first learned how carefully you had to put your fingers on the black and white keys, one after the other. But now, after long years of practice, you can talk with your friends and your hand goes on just the same. It has become instinct. It becomes automatic. But so far as we know, all the cases which we now regard as automatic or degenerated reason. In the language of the yogi, instinct is involved reason. Discrimination becomes involved and gets to be automatic samskaras. Therefore, it is perfectly logical to think that all we call instinct in this world is simply involved reason. As reason cannot come without experience, all instinct is, therefore, the result of past experience. Chickens fear the hawk. and ducklings love the water. And these are both the result of past experience. And these are both the result of past experience. Then the question is whether that experience belongs to a particular soul or to the body simply, whether this experience which comes to the duck is the duck's forefathers' experience or the duck's own experience. Modern scientific men hold that it belongs to the body, but the yogis hold that it is the experience of the soul transmitted through the body. This is called the theory of reincarnation. We have seen that all of our knowledge, whether we call it perception or reason or instinct, must come through that one channel called experience, and all that we know called instinct is the result of past experience, degenerated into instinct, and that instinct regenerates into reason again. So on throughout the universe, and upon this has been built one of the chief arguments for reincarnation in India. The recurrent experiences of various spheres in course of time produce this clinging to life. That is why the child is instinctively afraid, because the past experience of pain is there. Even in the most learned men who know that this body will go and who say never mind, we have hundreds of bodies. The soul cannot die. Even in them, with all their intellectual conviction, we still find this clinging to life. What is this clinging to life? We have seen that it has become instinctive. In the psychological language of yoga, it has become samskaras. The samskaras, fine and hidden, are sleeping in the chitta. All these past experiences of death, all that which we call instinct, is experience become subconscious. It lives in the chitta and is not inactive, but is working underneath. These chitta vrittis, these mind waves, which are gross, we can appreciate and feel. They can be more easily controlled, but what about these finer instincts? How can they be controlled? When I am angry, my whole mind has become a huge wave of anger. Feel it, see it, handle it, can easily manipulate it and fight with it, but I shall not succeed perfectly in the fight until I can get down below. A man says something very harsh to me, and I begin to feel that I am getting heated, and he goes on until I am perfectly angry and forget myself. Identify myself with anger. When he first began to abuse me, I still thought I am going to be angry. Anger was one thing and I was another. But when I became angry, I was anger. These feelings have to be controlled in the germ, the root, in their fine forms, before even we have become conscious that they are acting on us. With the vast majority of mankind, the fine states of these passions are not even known. The state when they are slowly coming from beneath consciousness. When a bubble is rising from the bottom of the lake, we do not see it, or even when it is nearly come to the surface. It is only when it bursts and makes a ripple that we know it is there. We shall only be successful in grappling with the waves when we can get hold of them in their fine causes. And until you can get hold of them and subdue them before any become gross, there is no hope of conquering any passion perfectly. To control our passions, we have to control them at their very roots. Then alone shall we be able to burn out their vast very seed. As fried seed thrown into the ground will never come up, so these passions will never arise. Sutram 10. Te pratiprasavaheyat sukshmaha. They to be rejected by opposite modifications are fine. However, these fine samskaras to be controlled, we have to begin with the big waves and come down and down. For instance, when a big wave of anger has come into the mind, how are we to control that? Just by raising a big opposing wave. Think of love. Sometimes a mother is very angry with her husband, and while in that state the baby comes in and she kisses the baby, the old wave dies out and a new wave arises. Love for the child. That suppresses the other one. Love is opposite to anger. So we find that by raising the opposite waves, we can conquer those which we want to reject. Then if we can raise in our fine nature those fine opposing waves, they will check the fine workings of anger beneath the conscious surface. We have seen now that all these instinctive actions first began as conscious actions and became finer and finer. So if good waves in the conscious chitta be constantly raised, they will go down, become subtle, and oppose the samskara forms of evil thoughts. From Sutras 1 to 10 of Sadhana Pada, Pathanjali talks about what is sadhana or discipline, how it has to be undergone, and what are the hindrances to this spiritual practice. With this, we come to the end of this episode. Further sutras we will see in subsequent chapters. Samastaloka Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.